My name is Claire Winters, and the last time I walked into my parents' backyard barbecue, my sister Madison raised her wine glass and announced loud enough for everyone to hear. Here comes the loser. The smell of grilled corn and ribs filled the suburban air, but suddenly I couldn't breathe. Family laughter died into awkward silence. 30 people turned to stare at me standing by the gate in my faded sundress, clutching a store-bought potato salad. Madison smiled wider, her perfect teeth gleaming under the string lights. She stood there in her designer wrap dress, her wealthy husband Eric by her side, looking like she'd just won some invisible competition. Everyone laughed nervously, pretending they hadn't heard what we all knew they had. My cousin looked away. My uncle coughed. But I heard every single word, and it cut deeper than any knife ever could. My old Honda Civic sat in the driveway behind me, a trail of smoke still rising from its exhaust. I'd just been laid off 2 weeks ago. My engagement had fallen apart 3 months before that. And now this. I walked to the picnic table and sat down, hiding my shaking hands under my thighs. Madison kept talking, her voice bright and cheerful like nothing had happened. She told everyone about her recent trip to the Bahamas, about Eric's promotion, about their new hot tub. Every word felt like another stone thrown at my chest. I forced myself to smile, to nod, to pretend I didn't care. But my chest burned with humiliation. My mother busied herself with the coleslaw, refusing to meet my eyes. My father suddenly became very interested in flipping burgers. Nobody defended me. Nobody told Madison to stop. That's when something inside me shifted. I made a decision right there at that scratched wooden table with paper plates and plastic forks. I would never walk into this house feeling ashamed again. I didn't know how yet, but I knew I would change everything. The potato salad sat untouched in front of me. I couldn't eat, could barely breathe. But I stayed for another hour because leaving would have felt like surrender. Through the eyes of everyone at that barbecue, Madison was perfect. She glowed like a magazine cover. Her honey blonde hair caught the evening light. Her laugh sounded like music. Her husband Eric stood tall and handsome in his polo shirt and expensive watch. They looked like success itself. I, on the other hand, wore a sundress I'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago. My hair was pulled back in a messy bun. I drove a car that coughed smoke. The contrast between us was cinematic, like we were characters in a movie designed to show the difference between winning and losing. But as I watched Madison charm the guests with stories about her influencer lifestyle, I noticed something. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her laugh came too quickly, too loud. Eric checked his phone constantly, barely looking at her. Beneath her perfect surface, something was cracking. I didn't know it then, but I was watching the beginning of her fall. And mine was about to become a rise. Back in my tiny one-bedroom apartment, I collapsed onto my second-hand couch and cried until my eyes burned. Then I dried my face and got ready for my evening shift at Murphy's Cafe downtown. I'd been working double shifts since losing my marketing job, serving coffee and sandwiches to people who didn't see me. Between customers, I sketched jewelry designs on napkins like I'd done since high school. Little wire-wrapped pendants, delicate chains with gemstone beads, earrings shaped like crescent moons. It was my escape, my quiet hobby that nobody took seriously. The apartment smelled like burnt toast and old carpet. My bed was unmade. Dishes sat in the sink. But it was mine. Nobody could take that away. After my shift ended at midnight, I walked home through empty streets, my feet aching, my tips barely enough to cover gas. This was my life now. Humble, real, lonely. But somehow, in the loneliness, I felt something stir. A tiny spark of defiance that refused to die. Mrs. Turner came into the cafe every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, ordering the same chamomile tea and blueberry scone. She was a kind woman in her 60s with silver hair and warm eyes. One Thursday, she noticed the small pendant I wore around my neck, a piece I'd made from copper wire and a tiny turquoise stone. She reached out and touched it gently. "Did you make this?" she asked. I nodded, feeling embarrassed. "It's beautiful," she said. "You should sell these online. people would buy them. I shrugged and wiped down the counter. I tried that once. Had an Etsy shop for a while. Nobody really bought anything. Mrs. Turner stirred honey into her tea and smiled. Maybe it wasn't the right time then. But timing is everything, dear. Sometimes we're not ready until we are. I didn't know what she meant. I thanked her and moved on to the next customer. But her words stayed with me like a seed planted in dry soil, waiting for rain. That night, I made the mistake of scrolling through Madison's social media. Her latest post showed her and Eric on a yacht, champagne glasses raised to the sunset. The caption read, "Hard work pays off. Living our best life." I stared at that caption until the words blurred. Hard work. Madison hadn't worked a day since she married Eric 5 years ago. She posted sponsored content for skincare brands and called it a career. Her husband's money funded everything, the house, the cars, the trips. I whispered to my empty apartment, "Whose hard work?" But nobody answered. Kept scrolling. Picture after picture of perfection. Her walk-in closet. Her marble kitchen. Her designer handbags lined up like soldiers. Each image felt like proof that I'd failed at life. I closed the app and threw my phone across the couch. Then I picked it up and looked one more time, hating myself for it. This was my nightly ritual now. Watching my sister's highlight reel while sitting in my darkness. I couldn't sleep that night, so I pulled out my old sketchbook from under my bed. It was dusty and worn, filled with designs I'd drawn years ago when I still believed in myself. Delicate necklaces, bold statement rings, earrings that looked like tiny galaxies. I'd forgotten how much joy these drawings brought me. I lit a candle on my kitchen table and spread out my supplies, wire, pliers, beads, stones I'd collected over the years. My hands moved without thinking, twisting and shaping, creating something from nothing. Hours passed. The candle burned low. By dawn, I'd made 3 new pieces, a pendant shaped like a phoenix, a bracelet with small silver stars, and earrings that caught the early light. They weren't perfect, but they were mine. For the first time in months, I felt something besides shame. Felt hope. It flickered small and fragile, but it was there. Maybe Mrs. Turner was right. Maybe timing was everything. Maybe now was my time. What I didn't know was that Madison's perfect life was already falling apart. Her husband Eric had started taking business trips that lasted too long. He'd come home smelling like unfamiliar perfume. His phone was always face down on the counter. Madison noticed everything but said nothing. She'd wake up at 3 in the morning and find him texting someone in the bathroom. She'd see charges on their credit card for restaurants she'd never been to. But she couldn't admit it. Not to herself. Not to anyone. So she posted more pictures online. Smiled wider at parties. Bought more designer bags to fill the empty spaces in her heart. She convinced herself that if the outside looked perfect, the inside would eventually match. She threw herself into her influencer brand, staging photos of breakfast in bed that she never ate, of bubble baths she never took, of a marriage that was already over. The cracks in her foundation were spreading, but she kept painting over them with filters and hashtags. Despite all her success and followers, Madison kept tabs on me. She'd check my old Etsy page even though I hadn't posted anything new in months. She'd scroll through my sparse social media looking for signs of my failure. It made her feel better somehow, knowing I was struggling. She'd screenshot my posts and send them to her friends with laughing emojis. "My sister's still trying to sell her little crafts," she'd text. So sad. The jealousy was quiet but poisonous. She told herself it wasn't jealousy at all. How could she be jealous of someone who had nothing? But deep down, something bothered her. Maybe it was the way I'd always been creative, the way I could make beautiful things with my hands. Maybe it was the way people used to praise my art in high school while she got attention for being pretty. Whatever it was, she needed me to stay small. My failure was part of her success story. If I rose, what did that make her? The next family dinner was at my parents' house 2 weeks later. My mother served pot roast and mashed potatoes while my father asked Madison about her latest brand deal. "We're so proud of you, honey," my mother said, beaming. Madison glowed under their praise. Then my father turned to me, his smile dimming slightly. "And Claire, how's the job search going? Found anything stable yet?" The word stable hung in the air like an accusation. I swallowed hard. "I'm working on something," I said quietly. "Still at the cafe?" my mother asked, her voice gentle but worried. He nodded. They exchanged a look. That look parents share when they're disappointed but trying not to show it. Madison cut her pot roast with perfect precision, her smile barely hidden. "I'm sure something will work out," she said sweetly. "Not everyone is meant for big careers. Some people are just meant for simpler lives." I gripped my fork until my knuckles turned white. My silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was becoming something else. It was becoming fuel. Madison discovered Eric's affair on a random Tuesday afternoon. A gossip blog posted a photo of him leaving a hotel with a woman named Veronica, someone he claimed was just a work colleague. The comments section exploded. Madison sat in her pristine living room staring at the photo on her phone screen. Her perfect world shattered in an instant. But she didn't tell anyone. Not her parents. Not her friends. Not even Eric at first. She confronted him privately. He denied it, then admitted it, then blamed her for being too focused on social media. He said she cared more about likes than their marriage. She cried until she couldn't breathe. Then she washed her face, fixed her makeup, and posted a photo of their anniversary dinner from last month with a caption, "Forever grateful for this man." She would not let the world see her fail. She'd built her entire identity on being perfect, and she'd protect that image no matter what it cost. Meanwhile, I was building something real. Something that couldn't be filtered or faked. Something that would last. I decided to give my jewelry business one more try. I created a new TikTok account and posted a time-lapse video of me making a pendant from start to finish. I didn't expect much. But I added a caption about resilience, about building beauty from broken pieces. I hit post and went to bed. When I woke up, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The video had gone viral overnight. 20,000 views. Then 50,000. Then 200,000. Comments flooded in. "Where can I buy this? This is gorgeous." Following for more. Orders started coming through my old Etsy page that I'd barely updated. 10 orders. Then 30. Then 100. I sat on my apartment floor surrounded by supplies, laughing and crying at the same time. My brand, Clarity by Claire, was born in that moment. Not because I was lucky, but because I'd kept creating even when nobody was watching. Mrs. Turner was right. Timing was everything. And my time had finally come. I worked around the clock for the next 2 weeks. My tiny living room became a glowing workshop. Wire and beads covered every surface. I barely slept, fueled by coffee and pure determination. My hands cramped from twisting metal. My eyes burned from straining under the desk lamp. But I'd never felt more alive. Each piece I created felt like proof that I mattered, that I could build something meaningful with my own 2 hands. Orders kept coming. My follower count climbed. People shared my videos. Small boutiques reached out wanting to stock my jewelry. I had to quit one of my cafe shifts just to keep up. The apartment that used to feel like a prison now felt like a kingdom. For the first time in years, I had purpose. Had direction. I had hope that wasn't fragile anymore. It was solid, real, unbreakable. I thought about Madison's words at the barbecue. "Here comes the loser." I smiled while wrapping a pendant in tissue paper. Not anymore. By week 3, local magazines started featuring my story. From cafe worker to jewelry designer. One woman's journey, read the headline in the Sunday Lifestyle section. The article included photos of my pieces and quoted me talking about resilience and second chances. Madison's friends saw it first. I knew because I started getting messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. "Saw your interview. Your jewelry is amazing. So proud of you." But the message I cared about most came from my cousin. "Madison's friends are talking about you. They can't believe it." I could picture Madison seeing the article. Could imagine her face going pale. Her carefully built narrative was crumbling. Her little sister, the loser, was becoming someone. The whispers in town were growing louder. Coffee shops and grocery stores, people pointed at me. That's the jewelry girl from the magazine. Madison's envy must have curdled into something darker. Into dread. Into the horrible realization that she wasn't the only star in our family anymore. Eric left Madison the same week my magazine feature came out. He didn't ask for a divorce yet, but he moved into an apartment downtown. The rumors spread like wildfire through their social circle. Madison's online followers noticed her silence. She hadn't posted in 5 days. Then 7. Then 10. The comments started changing. Is everything okay? Where have you been? Trouble in paradise. Then the gossip blogs picked up the story. Influencer Madison Winter's husband spotted with mystery woman. The same followers who once praised her perfect life now speculated about her pain. They mocked her silence. They created memes. They moved on to the next shiny thing. The image Madison had spent years building collapsed in days. She deleted comments, then disabled them entirely. Her follower count dropped. Brand deals fell through. The house felt too big and too empty. She'd built everything on a foundation of perfection, and perfection had finally cracked. Meanwhile, I was just getting started. The invitation came in a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering. The Riverside Charity Gala was requesting my presence as a featured small business sponsor. They wanted to showcase local entrepreneurs making a difference. I'd be given a table to display my jewelry and a chance to speak about my journey. My hands shook as I read it. Then I saw the guest list attached. Madison's name was there too, listed as a socialite supporter. We'd be in the same room for the first time since the barbecue. Since she'd called me a loser in front of everyone. Part of me wanted to decline, to avoid the confrontation. But a stronger part of me, the part that had worked until my hands bled, the part that had risen from nothing, knew I had to go. This wasn't about revenge. It was about showing up as myself. Fully. Proudly. Without shame. RSVP'd yes and went shopping for a dress. Not from a thrift store this time. From a real boutique downtown. Something elegant that would make me feel like the woman I'd become. The night of the gala, I pulled up to the Riverside Hotel in my new car. Not fancy but reliable and clean. No smoke trailing behind me. I traded in my old Honda 2 weeks earlier. I wore a deep blue gown that hugged my curves perfectly. Around my neck hung one of my signature pendants, a silver phoenix rising from flames. My hair was styled in soft waves. My makeup was simple but elegant. I stepped out of the car and heard gasps ripple through the crowd waiting outside. Someone whispered, "That's her. The jewelry designer from the magazine." I walked toward the entrance with my head high, feeling every eye on me. Then I saw Madison getting out of a car near the valet stand. She looked tired. Her designer dress couldn't hide the weight she'd lost or the hollow look in her eyes. Our eyes met across the parking lot. For a moment time stopped. I saw recognition flash across her face. Then something else. Something that looked like fear. Inside the gala, Madison's confidence shattered completely. A reporter from the local news approached her near the champagne table. I watched from across the room as the reporter asked about Eric, about the rumors, about why she'd gone silent online. Madison's face crumbled. Her voice trembled as she tried to answer. "We're working through some private matters," she stammered. "I'd rather not discuss it tonight." But the reporter pressed. "Your followers are concerned. Many are saying your perfect life was just an act." Madison's eyes filled with tears. Her mascara started to run. The cameras caught everything. People turned to watch. Whispers spread through the ballroom like fire. I felt a strange mix of emotions watching my sister fall apart in public. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Something more complicated. Something that felt like grief for both of us. For the sisters we could have been if pride hadn't poisoned everything. She saw me watching and her face twisted. Then she turned and walked quickly toward the hallway, leaving a trail of whispers behind her. I found Madison backstage near the coat check, leaning against the wall with her face in her hands. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her perfect makeup was destroyed. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she said, her voice cracking. "Watching me fall apart while you suddenly become someone." I stood there in my blue gown with my phoenix pendant catching the light. Felt calm, steady, clear. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not enjoying your pain, Madison. I never wanted that." "Then what do you want?" she asked, her voice rising. "To prove you're better than me. To rub my face in your success." I shook my head. "I just wanted to stop being your shadow. I wanted to stop believing I was less than you because you said so." She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant." "Yes, you did," I interrupted gently. "You meant every word at that barbecue. You needed me to be the loser so you could feel like the winner. But that was never real." The charity auction began at 8 o'clock. I returned to the ballroom and took my seat near the front. Madison didn't come back. The auctioneer announced various items: artwork, vacation packages, dinner experiences. Then he introduced me. "Our next item is a unique piece from local designer Claire Winters, founder of Clarity by Claire. This pendant is called Rise from the Ashes, and all proceeds will benefit the Children's Arts Foundation." The crowd applauded as my piece appeared on the screen behind him. A phoenix pendant made of silver and gold wire, with tiny red gemstones creating flames around the bird. It was my best work. The bidding started at $200. Then $500. Then $1,000. Finally, someone bid $3,000 and won. The crowd erupted in applause. I stood and bowed slightly, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. From the back of the room, I saw Madison standing in the doorway. She was watching me. Tears streamed down her face. She saw what I'd become. And maybe she saw what she'd lost. Not her husband or her followers, but herself. The following week, I drove to my parents' house on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. My mother answered the door with a huge smile. "Claire, we saw the gala coverage on the news. We're so proud of you." My father hugged me tight. They led me to the living room where newspaper clippings about my business covered the coffee table. They wanted to hear everything, every detail, every success. I told them, but I didn't need their validation anymore. Their pride felt nice, but it wasn't what sustained me. My peace came from within now. From knowing I'd built something real through hard work and determination. From proving to myself that I was more than Madison's shadow. More than the loser she'd labeled me. We talked for hours. They apologized for not seeing me before, for not asking about my dreams, for comparing us constantly. I accepted their apologies but didn't linger in the past. Some hurts heal. Others just become part of your story. Either way, you keep moving forward. After coffee, my mother and I walked to the garden behind their house. The same garden where the barbecue had happened. Where Madison had announced my arrival with cruel words that cut so deep. The string lights still hung between the trees. The picnic table still sat in the corner. But everything felt different now. Softer. Less sharp. The air smelled like roses and freshly cut grass. My mother handed me pruning shears and we worked side by side trimming bushes. "Madison came by yesterday," she said quietly. "She's not doing well." I nodded but didn't respond. "She asked about you. Asked if we'd seen your success." My mother paused, cutting a dead bloom from a rosebush. "I think she's finally realizing what she lost. Not Eric, but herself." I thought about that while we worked. About how easy it is to lose yourself in other people's opinions. In curated images. In the need to be perfect. Madison had built a castle of sand. And the tide had finally come in. Maybe now she'd build something real. Madison sat alone in her big empty house that same afternoon. I didn't know this at the time, but my mother told me later. Madison spent hours scrolling through old photos on her phone. Pictures of her and Eric looking happy. Pictures of family gatherings where she shined. Pictures of herself looking perfect and untouchable. She realized that in every single photo she was performing, smiling for cameras, posing for likes, presenting a version of herself that wasn't quite real. The house felt massive and cold around her. The walk-in closet full of designer bags looked like a museum of empty choices. The marble counters reflected nothing but loneliness. Her follower count kept dropping. Brand deals disappeared. Her phone barely rang anymore. Everything she'd built her identity on had vanished like smoke. And in the silence, she had to face the truth. She'd sacrificed real relationships for fake perfection. She'd hurt people to feel superior. She'd lost herself completely. The applause had stopped, and she didn't know who she was without it. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a blank piece of paper. I thought about Madison for a long time. About our childhood. About the moment things changed between us. About the cruelty that grows when people feel threatened. I picked up my pen and wrote, "Madison, you're not my enemy. You never were. I just had to stop believing I was less than you. I hope you find yourself again. Not the version you showed the world, but the real you underneath all the filters and pretending. The sister I remember from before everything got complicated. Forgive you. More importantly, I hope you forgive yourself. Claire." I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and drove to her house. The lights were on inside, but I didn't knock. I left the envelope on her doorstep, tucked under a small potted succulent I'd bought at the garden center. Then I drove away, knowing that healing takes time. That some relationships break and stay broken. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Just means letting go of the weight. I drove home as the sun set over the city, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. My apartment waited for me, small but full of life and purpose. Orders sat on my desk ready to be fulfilled. My designs hung on the walls like promises kept. I thought about the barbecue. About standing in that driveway in my thrift store dress, hearing Madison call me a loser, feeling smaller than I'd ever felt. I thought about the weeks of doubt and shame that followed. About the late nights making jewelry while wondering if I'd ever be enough. About the moment everything changed. Not when I went viral, but when I decided to stop believing Madison's story about who I was. Some victories are loud, announced with trumpets and applause. Others are silent, whispered in the quiet moments when you finally recognize your own worth. The sweetest victories aren't about proving anything to anyone else. They're about no longer needing to prove anything at all. I pulled into my parking spot and smiled. Madison's words echoed in my memory one last time. "Here comes the loser." But they didn't hurt anymore. They were just sounds, just noise, just echoes of a story that was never true. I grabbed my bag and walked toward my building. Not as the loser, not as the winner, just as Claire. And that was more than enough.